Sharing your story, even your weakest moments, is really channeled as strength. Because if it can touch just one or help one person, like, my comedy where somebody hears me joke about the 12 steps or not being able to date, in my first year, and, my misery, it's not self-deprecating. I'm really just sharing the truth. It's anecdotal, my dark times, laugh at them because that's how I heal. And being vulnerable and not hiding from your truth is so beneficial if you're a warrior enough to share it.
Welcome to the Hope Warrior Project podcast, where we bring you an extra dose of hope to help you get over the humps of life. I'm Stephanie Martino.
And I'm Lydia Zuniga, and together we are bringing you real stories of hope from real people. We believe by hearing other people's stories of challenge and transformation, we can all gain some hope for ourselves.
So if you've been looking to find and hold on to hope, you're in the right place. Join us on this journey as we all become warriors of hope.
Okay, hello and welcome. Today we have Lauren Jameson with us. She is a comedian who wasn't always able to see the humor in her life. She struggled with perfectionism, which manifested into some eating disorders and led to an Adderall prescription, which that magic pill became an addiction and served as a gateway to being dependent on alcohol as well as some other drugs. So things got so out of control that she actually ended up calling the suicide hotline while under the influence, which was a bit of a wake-up call. And it took a season of death that really opened her eyes to the value of her own life, because she lost 3 people in a really short amount of time, and one of them was actually drug related. So she made the decision to make a change, and now she is 19 months sober. We are so excited to share her story of how she overcame and really continues to overcome, right? Because it's not a one and done for sure. How she continues to overcome this challenge. So we are so excited to have you, Lauren. Welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you so much. Hello, good morning. Happy to be here with you ladies.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to have you with us. And I know we had talked before about this, and so I'm really interested and eager to get into this conversation with you. I know, mentioning even the Adderall, I feel like even lately I'm hearing so much more about Adderall and the usage of it, and the effects that can have on people and the addiction and all. So I think there's a lot of relevance to your story, and so I'm really excited to be able to share that. So can you just kind of help us understand and help our audience understand, what was life like at that time? What did it look like for you, and how were you feeling during that period?
At about the age of 17, after already going through, I was going through a series of eating disorders before the Adderall came into my life. I had no idea what Adderall was going to do once it came into my life. I didn't know what this drug was. I'd never heard of it. So when I was having some trouble with the pressure of SATs, because I was never a good test taker, and just trying to uphold this vision I had in my head of perfectionism, being thin and perfect and good grades, and all of these insecurities that I just had accrued in my life. I will admit, it's just full transparency, I had been called fat at home. I never was. I look back now and I know that's just body dysmorphia. But when you're told that by somebody you love, somebody you trust, in your household. So it wasn't an outside influence of me looking at pictures of skinny models, like, I need to be like that. It was being told something as harsh as that at a young age that leaves a stain on your heart and in your mind. But while I've forgiven the culprits with love and acceptance and tolerance, that I'm sorry it did. I'm not sorry, actually, that it affected me mentally. And I just stopped eating one day. And then I would get Adderall in my system after being prescribed it by a very expensive psychiatrist here in San Diego. I mean, my parents told me to go see this guy. We can't fix her, so this doctor can't. So I'm just doing as I'm told. I'm going down there with the check for this hack. I'm not going to name him, but I'm curious to know if he's still around. And I'm telling him, well, he knows that I have anorexia and then I also suffer from bulimia. He knows this information. He prescribes me a pill. It was obviously covered by insurance. I don't remember having my parents fill the prescription for me. I'm pretty sure I hopped down to the pharmacy, filled it myself. And then the next day I was off to the races, popping those little guys. And I quickly realized I'm not even having to think about not needing to eat. I don't even need to control it because this pill is doing the work for me. Have I just found like the secret to life? Like, this is amazing. I not only can study like a speed demon, be super on and charming and charismatic, which is already in my nature. I'm an extrovert. So it was like, it heightened that, it duplicated it, it intensified it. And I could do everything I needed to do. When Adderall became a part of my life, I was like, I didn't want people to know that I was using it to uphold this perfect image, but I wanted to use it forever. So when I went to college back in Texas, you bet I had that prescription on me at all times. And then in college, it became more so a recreational thing. Not so much to study, but wow, I can party longer with this little guy. I used to call him Smurfs. And even I was handing them out to other people because I'd get like 60 pills for a month. And it was even far too many for me to consume. So I would hand them out to friends. And that was the thing. Let's go to the bar, let's pop an Adderall and let's drink all night. So that's pretty much the introduction I had in my early years, upholding perfectionism and learning the secrets that I could utilize. Adderall being at the top of the list of how to maintain this facade. I was dying inside.
I love that you are so honest about your story and that you can remember like your motivations and kind of like what just what you were going through. Because me personally, like I'm working on that, like looking back, because I'm so forward thinking, and I used to think of it as a good thing, as like a strength, right? Like I have goals, like this is where I'm going, like I don't need to look at that stuff. But I think I also just like romanticized so much of my past, or just remember the things that made me look good, or that I wanted to remember, and wasn't always honest with like what my genuine motivations were for certain things. I love that you're doing that work and that you can look back on your story and like own that, because I think that's such a huge part of healing. And then just understanding yourself now, right? And being honest with yourself and knowing like what things really truly did happen that maybe you're not proud of, or you don't want to continue living that way. So then you're just more aware and can make better decisions moving forward. So I want to commend you for that, for sure. And I can relate to a lot of your story about, perfectionism and school pressure and all that, and just being a girl. And I could see how the Adderall would lead to other things. Can you share with us a little bit about like how Adderall kind of opened up the door to other things, and then how out of control did it get? Like, what was life like towards the end before you made that decision to make a change?
I was still getting away with the things that I was in high school, but ever so slowly, like sanding off the edges, my senior year in college, I finally hit a point where I was in a situation with a class and it had to go pass fail because I wasn't showing up to class. Like I always think of Clueless, Cher Horowitz, where she's always arguing her way out of things and somehow managing a good grade and, manipulating people really to get what she wanted. And I know that it looks all flashy and glamorous in the movie. And I think that was always a lot of movie references were my association. Sharon Stone and Casino and Michelle Pfeiffer, Elvira Hancock, so glamorous, and Scarface. And I watched all these movies at a very young age. And even though my family was really strict, it was like we were exposed to some violent stuff when we were young, and that's out of our control. Of course, we're going to watch. What's this on TV? she's beautiful. Oh, there's nudity now. And what are they doing? What are they putting up their noses? And cocktail hour always looks so fun. And I also was conditioned in that sense with a very big family growing up, Irish Catholic on my mother's side, and then Jewish on my dad's, the Catholic side being very heavy drinkers, and always witnessing with family gatherings, which were often everybody having a gay old time, everyone's getting loaded and drinking. And I remember my first taste of alcohol was that gold flecked vodka, that Goldschlager. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm so chic. I can't wait to do this more. It looks like it's a really good time. So when I was off to the races in college and on my own, it was full throttle. I didn't take my foot off the gas. I would probably say on average, I don't even know if I'd skip a day where we weren't going out and partying. There was always a reason to party. And then when I got out of college, I had developed, I guess when I was probably 19 was my first experience with cocaine. So when I got a real job in the real world, a corporate one, and I was expected to be there early and stay all day and being hungover and doing that stuff, I don't know how I managed. I look back and it was just a miserable existence. In your 20s, you can keep it up and you're a little more resilient. But now that I'm in my 30s, absolutely not. It's not sustainable forever. The party will be over one day, and that's different for everyone of when that time comes. And for me, it was 2019 in the summer. I'm coming up on 20 months of sobriety, and I have evidence today, 20 months later, that life is better this way.
Getting clear on the fact that, yes, it seems great, it seems fun in the moment, but when was it not fun? Like what happened, I guess, to make you really realize that it's not fun? This is not good for my life. Was it, and I know I want to talk about the 3 people that you lost within a very short amount of time. Was that kind of a point that brought it all to your awareness that this is not good? How did that all work? How did you get from this is fantastic, I'm living, this party life, I've got all this energy, to holy crap, I can't do this anymore?
And I couldn't keep up. It literally made my life unmanageable. I was miserable. I was depressed. In the moment when I'm partying, I'm not, because you're on mind altering substances, you're in a different universe. But when that dread came in, when I knew the weekend was coming and knowing what I had to do the following week, like go to work and be a constructive human in society and a good daughter and friend and sister and, all of these roles that don't define us, but it was like, I'm doing a really shitty job at all of these things. And most of all, I realized I was hurting myself, and I was lying and I was flaking, and I was just like, I am not this person, and I don't want to be this person, and something has got to change. So yeah, I said the party was over. It just wasn't fun anymore. I began to get panic, like anxiety, where my chest would tighten and I couldn't breathe. And then again, all of a sudden you're prescribed Xanax. Oh, you have anxiety? Here's Klonopin for you. So that was, again, like another situation with the Adderall of, here's the quick fix, with Western medicine, write her a script, she needs to calm down. So it was like, at points in my life, I would be on uppers and downers. So really it was that the party just stopped being fun. I physically couldn't breathe at times because I was so overwhelmed with anxiety, and just like life was just terrible. I didn't want it anymore at times. I was ready to give up.
Yeah, I can relate to, I had not like panic, like I would have mini panic attacks when I was working full-time in retail and management, when I was a young mom with my first daughter. And I would have moments where my body would start to act like I'm about to give a speech in front of like some really important people. And I would literally just be alone in the store or like with my other coworker with no reason to be like so nervous. It concerned me, right? Like nothing's happening. Why is this like physically happening in my body if I have no reason to be nervous and anxious right now? And so I think a big thing is again, being honest with yourself, like, am I happy? Am I happy with what I'm doing? Because another, I think, coping mechanism for us as humans is like, just, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, right? One foot in front of the other, keep going, keep going. And then like things start to happen within our bodies and it's like, oh, and that's like the beautiful design that we are, that, our body keeps score, but it can definitely, if we don't listen for too long, it can show up in way bigger ways than just, a little, like what I was experiencing. So you mentioned a sponsor. So was that one of the first steps you took, was getting involved? Because it was from AA, correct?
Yes.
So was that one of the, like, what was the first thing you did once you were like, I need help, I'm done? Was it AA, or was it something else? Or what was like the biggest step that you made in the beginning?
I was working with an LMFT that was back in Texas. My parents had presented this resource to me because we were having family dynamic issues, which is a beautiful thing if a family is willing to constructively work together with a resource like a therapist or psychiatrist. Not a lot of people think therapy is hippy dippy or whatever, and they don't believe in it. And also it's admitting that you have a problem, and that means you're weak. So, which to me, I actually think that's strength. That's how I feel in hindsight. So it was February of 2019, and I had gone to this beautiful place called Idlewild, which is known as the Rainbow Community here. It's a little mountain town in the San Jacintos near Riverside, about 2 hours from San Diego. And I'd never been, and it was snowing. And I had this calling that weekend. I was with a friend that I trusted who had grown up with an alcoholic parent. And, I think we spent the weekend journaling and being in nature and not drinking at all. And I'm thinking, God, this is so nice. This is so peaceful. I'm waking up with clarity and just ready for the day and just seeking that. I want more of this now. And so I happened to find, something made me Google AA meetings in this little town. So I went and experienced, had my first AA meeting in Idlewild. And it was this great group of people that welcomed me with open arms. They didn't know me. They knew my first name. And I think that a lot of people know you don't share your last, which I have a lot of jokes about. You bare your heart and soul and you tell them about all the things you've done in your life that are terrible, that you probably even your own mother doesn't know, but they don't know your last name. It's like hysterical. So I really, on the drive back, I was with my friend and I said, I could do more of that. I'd like to explore this further. So I did come back to San Diego and I looked up, meetings locally to me. And I went and checked out a meeting here. That was an all women one. The first one I went to was a mix of men and women. And for whatever reason, it didn't stick then. Well, I know the reasons. I went back out there for another February, March, April, May, June. And then that's soon right around the time when my friends, that series of deaths came into my life. So it was like the seed was planted. I'd experienced a little hint of it. I enjoyed it. It felt good, but I wasn't ready to cave and say, I have a problem and this is it. The party's officially over. So when those events happened in my life and I was using alcohol and drugs to cope with them even more, I was also stand-up comedy became a part of my life the year before. And that's another story, but I was so miserable and sad and crushed, and I had the help of a therapist, but my family, I honestly, I couldn't lean on. I feel that my family's always been very afraid of my emotions and that I can't fully feel them with them. It turns them off. They get very scared. They don't understand what's happening, and it's just my nature, and I'm not going to fight who I am. I quite love the person. I'm learning to fall in love with who I am, probably for the first time. And I'm not going to change that. It also makes me a really good comedian. So no, that's not changing. But I was able to feel those emotions with my therapist, which was a paid resource. But then when I found AA, I found myself back in the rooms after that third funeral where I was high at the funeral, I'd been up all night doing cocaine by myself. That was another thing that was happening a lot, is I would go out and party with friends, and then I would take my supplies and I would go home, and it would be a one-woman party. It would be a one-person party, and I would stay up all night, often crying, calling ex-boyfriends, like talking to people. Like, I mean, I would look at what I'd done the next day and be like, why did you reach out to that person? Just, I'm not here. I'm not mentally well. And then, like you had mentioned, one of those calls ended up being after I think I'd called my ex-boyfriend in LA. I called a suicide hotline. I'd been given that information through a therapist, like a sheet, and I had it on my desk, and it was like, there's the phone number right there. And this person stayed on the phone with me until I was comfortable to get off. And I was just hysterical, high, definitely on drugs. And, yeah, that was when things started to get really bad. And then I went home when my cousin passed away, which was the second death during that series of 3, after just losing my friend, Nicole, a few weeks prior. And I hadn't even processed hers yet when I was dealing with the next. And then it was like, okay. And then John came after I literally was en route to my cousin's funeral. I got the phone call that a couple of people from high school, one of which I went to college with as well, had passed away. I said, I'm literally en route to my cousin's memorial service right now. I wish I hadn't answered this call. I wish you hadn't have told me, but now I know. And so it was just, overlapping, and it was too much for a human to handle. And it was the catalyst that perpetuated recovery for me, which is the gift that I got, that I'm so grateful to receive. Like, I feel so lucky and so fortunate that I can learn how to live a life in a different way. And because I was headed for the same thing, I have no doubt in my mind that if I continued on coping with life and grief and everything that happens in life, whether you like it or not, with drugs and alcohol, I very well was probably headed for an overdose as well. As much as I crave it, my body wants that, like, I want to live. No. And after getting a front row seat to that 3 times in a row, with the third being a drug-related death, I said, this is it. This is it. And 3 days later, I went into AA, and I haven't looked back. And I know we're not supposed to, I think, mention AA in publications or media or the news, but I have no shame in it. And if it's for the benefit of helping people, it's not something I want to conceal. I'll say a joke sometimes. I'm in this program. I can't say what it is. It starts with an A and it ends with an A. So you do the math. So yeah, they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that was around my 3-month mark that I met a wonderful woman who's actually 10 years younger than me, but she's been sober for 10 years. She got sober when she was 18. She went to college and didn't drink at all through college. This person is like a zygote to me. She is, I still, when I think about it for too long, I'll say it to her. I cannot believe you didn't drink through college. How did you do this? And she's still sober to this day. And I just revere and admire and respect her so much. And I know there's a lot of shade that the younger generations get, but in my case, I have an experience where I'm learning so much about life from somebody who's a decade younger than me. She's 27 and so wise. So I have a beautiful guide in my life. It's almost a bonus that they become a friend, because that's not necessarily something that's going to happen. They're not supposed to be your best friend. They're supposed to walk you through the steps. That's what the definition of a sponsor is. And if a friendship blossoms from that, that's just a bonus. And for me, it did. I feel like I have another person in my lifeboat that's like a sister to me now. And we help each other out equally. It's funny. It's like this beautiful dance of, if she calls me up, I happen to be having a good day, so I can hold space for her. And likewise, like when I'm having a bad day, it's so funny. It's just like, this is bigger than us, that it's very rarely that she and I are both having a bad day together, because it's like allows us to be able to nurture and support that person. And we usually are referencing a tool that will involve a writing exercise or a certain passage in the book, or, something that I've learned that I never would have ever experienced, like to do. And it helps so much to be free of things that we drank over and use, resentments and jealousy, envy, all of these, we call them character defects. And And it just makes me a better human. I want to be a better human, you know? And now I have a way to do that. And it's a daily practice. It's every day. There's not like a day where this just ends and I've mastered it. That's not going to happen. I have to work at this every day. So
Right.
I'm happy to do it.
I love the fact that you shared about your sponsor being younger than you, because I think there is a bit of humility that it takes to like learn from someone younger than you, right? You know, just even in being in corporate America, I experienced that. You know, sometimes I'd end up with a boss that was younger than me, and I had to be like, okay, just because I'm older doesn't mean I know more, right? So I think that that's awesome to hear. And everybody's at a different stage. It's not based on your age, right? It's based on a variety of things. And so regardless of your age, there's recovery for you, right? Now that you've been doing the program, and obviously things are better in your life now, and you're doing life without drugs and alcohol, you know, what does life look like for you today? And what helps you to really stay on track in addition to AA? Is there anything else you do that helps you?
Every day I feel like I learn new tools. You kind of become a tribe with certain people, and there's a lot of people. Just because people are sober doesn't mean they're great people. You know, we're sick people, spiritually sick, and that's why we drink and use is from suffering. Not only there's 3 different factors with drugs and alcohol use. It's a disease of the mind, and it's the obsession. You know, then there's the physical sense, the physical craving for it. And then there's the spiritual malady. So it's like this triangle of just caca, you know, like one of those things is really hard to attack and, you know, get a hold on. So every day a little bit more, I feel freer and I seek peace, you know, and it's an inside job. Normally if I feel like I'm getting panic, or I've still gone through depression in sobriety. I did several times last year. And life is by no means perfect, but now, I fight for what I really want. I say no. Oh my God, that was not a word I used in my vocabulary often. What a beautiful word. I used to think it was such a bad word, but my gosh, what a word of self-love and care to oneself, and what a practice as well. It's not been easy for me to create boundaries with my family, with friends, you know, people that I no longer want in my life because it weighs on me. Like I'm going to hurt someone's feelings, the codependency. I had a friend tell me that I was codependent once, and I'm thinking, no, I'm the most independent woman I know. You know, I live alone. I don't rely on anyone. But then I had to, when I really understood after going to a meeting, I checked out all of these different meetings. Everything has an A. There's overeaters. There's every drug has its own specific one. It's not just narcotics. It's, you know, then there's AA. There's so many different, there's sex and love. Like we are human beings. Everyone's got an addiction in some form, whether it's coffee or sugar or sex, or we're human, we're fallible. And when I finally realized like I'm a human being, I don't need to be perfect. And again, another process, because I'll have my moments, but I'm able to identify them quicker. Like I play the tape, like, oh, there it is. And then I can do the work quickly in my head. You know, sometimes I'd have to sit in front of a computer and write it out. Like, what's an inventory of why am I feeling this way? Your body just has a physical response to it now. It's like you're knowing. I don't know if you've read Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Such a good book. But she talks about like in life, you know, people pleasing and seeking the validation that you get from other human beings is what's supposed to fill you in life. Again, with the roles as a woman, really more. I would love to hear from the man on having to fulfill perfectionism and, you know, people pleasing all the time. But it's a role we give ourselves. Nobody asked us to do this. And then we wonder when we come home and we're feeling underwhelmed and anxious and depressed because we're out there trying to make everybody else happy and not us. So again, that's a practice, like not feeling selfish because I'm saying no. And no, I want to sit this out. Like I'm not flaking on you. I'm not being a bad friend. Or no, mom and dad, I don't want to fly to Texas this year for the holidays. I've got stuff going on. Like I need to take care of me. I love you, but no, you know, the stroke and stand. Thank you, but no. I've just become this human being that's becoming stronger. And like I said, going for what I want, that involves something that I experienced in my life of using and abusing. And now as a sober woman to have the comparison. And I'm an artist. I've always known at a young age that I was born to be on stage. And I got lost along the way a little bit, but really it wasn't getting lost. It was like, this was my path, you know. My past doesn't define me. It's a part of me. I try not to, I look back and glance at it every now and then from time to time, but I try not to stare, because when I focus too much on the past, I know I get depressed. I can't change it. And then the future, seeking to the future too much for me gives me anxiety. So I just really try so hard to just stay in the day, and be present with who I'm with. And now with my craft, which is stand-up comedy. And so I was still in my disease, I guess a year and a half into comedy. Now I'm 3 years, celebrating 3 years in the business. And now experiencing it as a sober person and seeing how much more I'm capable of, how much more I care about it, because it took me leaving my other jobs behind to really say, we're doing this and whatever it takes. And I fight for my sobriety so much more because it is always going to be number one. I had to learn that the hard way too, because I'm like, no, comedy is number one, then sobriety, or something else would always be more important, paramount, and then sobriety. But no, it really has to, you won't get far. Sobriety has to come first. Even before like my family, I've realized that, because if I'm not whole and I'm not taking care of me, then I can't hold space or take care of anyone else. And that's so apparent and applies to the way that I professionally live and passionately. So now, being a sober artist, a sober comedian, I've seen such a shift. I never would go on stage loaded or drunk. That made me too nervous. I did it once and it was a disaster. I was performing at a new club in San Diego and I went so fast because I was on cocaine. I was like, and then I got off stage early thinking I don't want to run the light because that's bad etiquette. You don't want to do that in a new club. You don't want to go over. And the guy who was hosting, when I got to the back and, I got laughs and stuff, he said, you only did 4 minutes. And I said, what do you mean? I felt like I did 10. And he said, no, you went short, really short. Like, because I was on drugs, like everything speeds up, or maybe if you're smoking marijuana, everything slows down. So that right then and there, even though I was still in I said, I'm never, ever doing this again. I care about this too damn much. That was disrespectful to the audience, disrespectful to the organizers of the show, the club, and myself. So it's just so important to me to be clear and to be professional. Like any business, you can get caught up with the wrong people. It's still very prevalent. People are always asking me, like, how do you do this for a living? How are you immersed in this world when you're performing in bars and clubs and the scene? And, I'm watching the documentary about the Comedy Store right now. It is very prevalent. But when your perspective and your lens shifts and you have tools in your life now to cope with it, I'm going to work. Why would I go? I have gone to work hungover and on drugs. Like, I don't want to go back to that. And this is a job for me. It doesn't feel like work because I love it so much, but it's just not how I'm going to, I want to be known in the business as somebody that's reliable, that's not going to flake, that's going to show up as a professional and do the job and do a good job. So that's what's really important to me. And I don't want to be associated as somebody that's, blowing lines in the bathroom or, showed up late because they're hungover or whatever. That's just not ever, as I know, I say one day at a time, but I vow, I endeavor that will never be me again.
I remember last time when we spoke, you were saying about how like you would, because you mix a lot of your story into your comedy, which I think like a lot of comedians do. And that's what makes it work, right? Because it's genuine. And you can kind of look at it through a humorous lens, but it's still like the reason why it's funny is because there's so much truth to it, right? And people can relate. And then like knowing that you're affecting people too in the audience, or maybe the people that are working at the club coming up to you asking, like, oh, that was great, but how did you get sober, right? Like, it's a different way to go about talking about these topics, which I find so amazing because it seems like it's always like an intervention or like this serious conversations of like people trying to help other people. But I think it's like those subtle ways that make the bigger difference is, you know, when people feel like they came across the message on their own, you know, they just so happen to be in your audience and heard something that you said that resonated. So I think you're probably making a huge difference in that way. And I think you even shared with us last time that you want to go on tour like at colleges, right? Or high schools. And I think that's genius, because that's how you're going to reach young adults, is through entertainment and humor, and not through, all right, like, let's all sit down and talk about like how serious this is and show them, you know, scary things and try to scare them out of doing it. Because I don't know, it's just like the mind of a teenager, right? Like, we want to do the opposite of what adults tell us is important. So I love that. But so you're really taking, like, you know, your God-given talent, using maybe your difficult past to affect people's futures and to affect your future in a positive way. So that's really beautiful. And I will definitely, you know, be following your journey, and I can't wait to see the impact that you make in this way. A question that we've been asking our guests is, what does the term Hope Warrior mean to you? I mean, aside from our project, aside from anything that we've told you about what we're doing, just like related to your story, when you see Hope Warrior, like, what's the definition of that for Lauren?
I love both words, and paired together, it's like peanut butter and jelly. For me, I use the word warrior all the time. And I know we're in this era, especially as we're three women who are driven on this call and wanting to make an impact, contribute what we know as our gifts and propelling them into the world. You know, I say mixing passion with service. And I see that's what you two ladies are accomplishing here. And it's a beautiful thing. So for me, I guess, you know, the word warrior it's a yoga pose. And I feel like it's a stance that's very strong, of course. And it's just somebody that, you know, I don't want to say is like revered in any way, but it's a leadership role, a warrior. And it's not necessarily like you're actively recruiting or seeking followers, you just attract them. And it's because you're doing what you were meant to do while we live this thing called the human experience. And for me, hope, I went to Oregon once and I visited the Three Sisters Mountains, and just seeing those, they're three sisters named Hope, Charity, and Faith. And I use the word hope a lot. And a lot of times I find myself, faith is a word that I've learned is something that you don't have like a basis for proof. You're just trusting. So I say hope all the time. I mean, it's a daily usage of that word. And so I just, I don't know, it's just sheer positivity. It's like being a beacon of hope and being a warrior of strength, and trying to really be an example, but you're not really trying to, you know, it's being vulnerable. Of course, I know we're in this era of Brene Brown where sharing your story, even your weakest moments, is really channeled as strength, because if it can touch just one or help one person, like, you know, my comedy where somebody hears me joke about the 12 steps or not being able to date, you know, in my first year, and, you know, my misery, it's not self-deprecating. I'm really just sharing the truth. It's anecdotal, you know, my dark times, laugh at them, because that's how I heal. And being vulnerable and not hiding from your truth is so beneficial if you're a warrior enough to share it. You can't force people to do that. There's a lot of people I know in the program that don't want people to know. They're embarrassed. They feel they're weak because they're in the rooms. I pray, I hope that there's a shift for them where they realize how strong they are and how brave they are to have the courage to do it, to admit they have a problem and to get help for it, to fight for their lives. So I think in any essence, it's overcoming horrible things in life and finding a way to heal from them, but helping others heal by sharing your story about it. So that's probably what I feel about Hope Warrior.
I like that. And I like that you tied together what could seem like two very polar opposites, leadership and vulnerability. But really, if I think back on my experience in my career and leaders that I truly felt were true leaders, it was the ones that were real with me. They were vulnerable, because that let me know I could connect with them, and it gave me hope, for then what I could achieve, because I saw the real them. So I love that. It could seem very opposite, but actually there is a real connection there. So really good insight on that. So for those that would have really connected with what you're saying, maybe depending on where they are in their journey, is there a way that they could maybe reach out to you or follow you, or heck, if they want to even like follow your comedy, how could they do that?
So my moniker that was born, I guess, during the pandemic through my mentor is Kosher Barbie, because I don't look Jewish by most people's standards. I'm told whenever I say, I get the same reaction. You're Jewish, you're blonde, you're blue-eyed, like you're Aryan. That doesn't make sense. But yeah, I'm a Jewish girl from the South, and it plays very much into my character of who I am as a comedian. So Kosher Barbie Comedy is pretty much, that's the slated name across all fronts, from YouTube to Instagram. Website is coming soon, as are Kosher Barbie Pickles. Going to be able, now that we'll be out performing live again, I can merch it up and do that at live shows, which are starting to happen as things are starting to reopen safely and responsibly in San Diego and Southern California. So basically, if you want to come to a show, please come be a guest. A lot of things are still virtual right now, can be enjoyed from the comfort of your own home, where only the laughter is contagious. But I'm happy to give for anyone that is suffering from what they feel is overwhelming their life in terms of alcohol or drug usage. I'm always happy to talk to anyone one-on-one and help you, find the right resources as like an introduction to sobriety, to whatever program is best for you. My door is always open for that. And that's what my comedy seems to be narrating, is rather than just conventional joke telling, more transformational comedy with a through line of a message that like you are worth it and you can get help. You are not alone. There's a solution, and I found it in many ways, and I'm living proof that it is possible. Recovery is possible, and going for your dream is. And with the two of them together, there's no ceiling, it's just endless what the possibilities are. But it's believing in yourself, and again, just valuing your life and knowing you're worth it and fighting for it. So Hope Warrior is what I think that's just going to be words in my mind. Like, I'm being a Hope Warrior today. I'd like to leave my life like that on a daily basis. I ask my higher power every day, put those in my path that you would help me help. And I don't know what that's going to look like when I wake up in the morning first thing and I say my prayers, and usually get on a meeting, but I meditate. And, I usually say when I'm praying, that's me talking to my God. And then meditating is God talking to me. And just to get those few moments of getting really quiet in the morning are sacred to me, to not immediately grab my phone and attack the to-do list and like, oh, I got to email that person back. It's like, no, you got to get set first and then proceed. Pause, then proceed. So inner work is just such a big part of that, and nobody can do it but you. There's recovery tools that are free at your fingertips and online. We've got things online at our disposal. It's miraculous what's out there if you go seeking for it.
Well, Lauren, you certainly are a Hope Warrior, and that is like our hope for this project is helping people to see that everybody has that Hope Warrior within them. It's just about like waking her up or waking him up, getting that Hope Warrior at the forefront of your mind, and like being aware of it and using your story to give back. And that's why we do this podcast. We love hearing these stories and sharing them, because we just think they're so powerful. And I think we even talked about this last time we talked, was like, this sponsor did so much for you that maybe that doctor that you saw originally when you were younger could have done for you if he had understood, right? If he had maybe like had his own Hope Warrior journey, but it didn't sound like he did, or it didn't sound like he embraced it. It just sounded like he was writing prescriptions and making money. So it's like, but then that sponsor that wasn't getting paid a dime had her story of redemption and of transformation. And that's what fired her up to be your hope warrior. So we love like encouraging people to like connect with what I guess what challenges God put in front of them to bring that hope warrior to the surface, which we can certainly see in your story. So thank you so much for sharing that with our community today. Yeah, it's been great. It's been an awesome conversation. We look forward to following your comedy and everything that you're going to contribute.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Lydia. I'm so glad we connected. Thank you online, for us to find each other, because you're in Chicago and I'm on the West Coast. So I look forward to staying connected with both of you too.
To all you Hope Warriors out there, thank you for joining us today to hear another incredible story.
We hope that you are encouraged and are taking away something positive for your own life. If you want to hear more stories like the one today, be sure to subscribe to this podcast.
And don't forget to tell your friends about it, because we can all use some extra hope in our lives.